Hello, everyone. It is Nellie Harden with the 6570 Family Project, where we are loving and leading our daughters in a way that teaches them to love and lead themselves before they leave home. And they're out there doing their thing in the great big world. And today I want to talk about disciplining disappointments. Have you ever heard that term before? It was probably about 15 or so years ago that I started hearing that term. And I was like, that's interesting, right? I have discipline and I for sure have disappointments, but marrying these two and putting them together, I'd never really thought about or really contemplated before. And I started developing it as in conjunction with all the other development and family work that we've been doing. And it really is such a monumental task to do and then to teach as well, right? We are the leaders, we are the architects. If you've been around any amount of time, you know that I call parents family architects because we are planning, designing, and building the beginning of someone else's life, which is a really big deal. It's very humbling. And in the first half of their childhood, we're really doing it for them. We're doing all these things for them. Second half of childhood, we are partnered in doing it with them so that they know how to do it when they leave home and they are all on their own, right? Okay, so how can we jump in here? Well, first, I want to just remind everybody about these expectations because that's where disappointments really come in, right? You have this expectation and that doesn't happen. And so think about it. You go around, you're like, this is going to be amazing. It is so good. And maybe you thought about proms when you were young. Maybe your daughter's thinking about prom. Maybe the first car, maybe proposals, weddings, parenting, vacations, all the things. And honestly, even in really hard situations where you are going to approach and have a conversation, you're like, okay, so I'm really nervous and I'm going to have this courageous conversation with this person. And this is what they're going to say. And then I'm going to say this. And then this is what they're going to say. And then you show up and it's all befuddled and everything, takes a hard left. And so that's really where we find our disappointments in unmet expectations. Let me tell you, so my junior prom, my boyfriend that I had at the time and we broke up junior prom night. My senior prom, the boyfriend I had at that time, huge conflict between him and my parents. So I was like, juggling that all night because I didn't want anyone to be upset. I just wanted to enjoy prom. That was, a disaster right there. My proposal was great, but there's so much pressure that can happen with proposals, especially like getting it right, having the right people there and doing all of this, right? And it's just between the two people. So, stressless is definitely the key. Have the moment between the people, right? Weddings is a huge one. Weddings have a tendency to get so complicated and you're like, this is going to be the best day of my life. It is going to be awesome. It is going to be great. It is going to be cherished. And then you get there. And I know I say my first wedding because my husband and I remarry every 10 years. So my husband and I have been married for it'll be 22 years in a couple of weeks, but we've been married 3 times at our original wedding, and then we renewed our vows at 10 and 20 years. But anyway, at our first wedding, right, it was, the caterer, and I had the DJ coming up to me saying, your guests are getting really hungry. We need to do this, hurry on the photographer as the photographer's taking pictures and doing all this. And I was like, right. And it can get so overwhelming. And then what about parenting? Right. I went through infertility before parenting. Which I love to really just say that I was a mom years before I ever had a child. Right. And if if anyone's been through infertility or maybe you have, it is very much the case. And so we wanted and desired and loved this child years before she was ever born. But then when she comes home, it's like, oh my goodness, what do we do? Right. And it's all the things and it's the sleepless nights and all of that. So that can get a sharp left turn sometimes at 3 a.m. when you've been dealing with crying for a while. You're like, I wanted this for years and I'm so tired. Right. And then family vacations or family pictures. That's a quintessential one right there is the family pictures, right? Guys, we're all going to dress alike. We're going to look, exactly, or we're going to look happy. We're going to do this. And then we're going to look like we're having the best time ever. And then the click goes off and everyone's like, blah, 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 right? Okay. So you get it. You understand unmet expectations are what leads to disappointments, and something ultimately goes wrong. The story that you had in your head is different than the story that's playing out ahead of you. So the bottom line is expectations can be great as long as your joy is not woven into the fabric of that. Why? Because things do not go as expected, you guys. So when was the last time you can honestly say that went 100% exactly how I expected it to? We're planning a grad party for my oldest, that little girl that was born all those years ago. We're planning a grad party for her. And for our last wedding, the one that was for our 20-year, 2 years ago too, I went into it with, I am putting the planning in, I am doing the things, but on the day, no stress. There is a stress ban at the door, and no stress is coming into this house. Whatever happens, happens. We're just here to celebrate. And that's how I'm going into the grad party as well. And how I think about that is like a fence. Okay. So I'm walking this fence. On one side of the fence, there is all of these expectations and dreams and plans and hopes for sure, right? If you don't have a plan, then you can't plan to succeed either. So you don't want to abandon all expectation and plan, but that's one side. And the other side is going to be all of what really happens and how you react to that, right? And so you've seen a tightrope walker walk sometimes, right? And they have that long pole and there's a counterweight on both sides. Well, if all of your weight is on one side, guess what? You're going down. You're going down. And if all of your weight is on the other side, the same thing will happen. If all you're doing is reacting all the time, then you're going to fall. And if all you're doing is planning and having these expectations all the time, you're going to fall. So you need to walk the fence in between these. And funny enough, I've been a vegetarian for 26 years now, 26. Way back in the 90s, last century, I know I'm so old, but last century, I became a vegetarian on Halloween night of 1996, actually. And that's another story in and of itself. But anyway, I always say to be beef jerky, which is funny for people that know me because they're like, Nellie, you're a vegetarian. Why would you be beef jerky? That's really weird. Well, think about it. So beef jerky has a structure, right? And it's strong, but it's also flexible. It doesn't break if you try and bend it, right? But it's also not just going to become a pool on the floor, right? And so be beef jerky. Go in with the expectations, the hopes, the plans, but also be flexible to whatever actually happens, right? I was thinking the other day and talking with someone and they were like, what about Twizzlers? You could be a Twizzler. And I was like, Twizzlers are gross. So sorry to anyone that loves Twizzlers out there, and beef jerky is probably gross too. I can honestly say I'm not sure I've ever had it in my life, but I like the structure of it. So disappointments can happen when expectations are not met. And how can we deal and teach our kids to do the same? Because we are the leaders. We teach, they learn, they do, right? And so, number one, paint the expectation. And that is a term that does not come from me. That is from one of my favorite mentors ever, and that is Brene Brown. Okay, so paint the expectation so everyone is on the same page. This can happen with your room is really nasty. Can you go clean that up? And they go clean it up, and you go in there and you're like, your room is still really nasty. And they're like, but I picked up the orange peel that was on the desk. And you're like, but what about everything else? Right. And so this is such a beautiful time of bringing clarity into the conversation, because clarity is kind. Right. And so paint the expectation so everyone is on the same page. And then if need be, then there's a chance for that story to change before the expectation is supposed to be met. Example, let's just stick with clean the room, right? You can be like, okay, so I really need your room to be clean today. I'm afraid hazmat people are going to come in here, right? And so this is what a clean room looks like in my definition. And then maybe they come back and say, okay, I get you, but can I do these, 4 things? But this one, it's actually something I'm working on for a school project or something I'm working on with a friend. Can I leave that out? Sure. Awesome. Right. And so it gave you time to figure out what that expectation would be. You painted it first. They know exactly what you are expecting. And then they also had time to change something if need be. So you didn't just paint it and you go in there and you're like, what about this big craft on the floor and all of this stuff? And then they're like, well, I have this thing. Okay. beforehand, before the expectation is to be met, you can have this time. Does that always work? Do you always have time for that? No, of course not. But when you do, take advantage of it. Okay. So paint the expectation, and think two people with two different expectations can get very messy. Two people, two different expectations, same situation, very, very messy. So whenever you have a chance, paint the expectation and get any negotiations or give and take and things out of the way first. This can happen with things as big as siblings trying to deal with something after there's a death in the family, right? Or as small as clean the room, or as small as let's do your homework, or not let's do your homework. You go do your homework. I'm going to do this and come back, right? Well, I actually have to go do this. And so, hold on, there we go. I actually have to go do this. So I'm going to do that at 5:30. Okay, awesome. Paint the expectations, guys. Okay, number 2 is communicate well and communicate frequently. Even if you have to say, I don't have the words right now, but this is not what I expected, and I actually need to go process this, right? You're teaching them it's okay to take a breather, and if their expectations are not met, which will 100% guaranteed happen in their life, right? They can take a moment to process it and then come back, right? Other things you can do here is brain dumping, right? Just get it all out, because it can feel so big and so heavy and so abstract in the head that, hold on, I am having an issue with a friend right now. I went to talk to them and it went sideways. I don't even know how we got to where we got. I just need to, I'm feeling so overwhelmed. Brain dump it, get it on paper. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to have sentence structure. It doesn't have to have grammar. It's my favorite kind of writing right there. It doesn't have to have grammar. Just put it on paper so that they can see it in a solid form, not just this cloud that is over their head, right? And think about this too, have a safe space, and remember, words cannot be taken back. Okay. So it's okay to have a safe space and just say, just tell me everything. Just dump it all out. But you need to be prepared for what is going to be said, because words cannot be taken back. So if that is the route that you choose to take, you need to be, be like a Teflon or what have you, and just let it fall off of you. Know what you're doing is for them to get it out, not for you to receive it. Okay. It's for them to be able to get out whatever's on their heart. It is not for you to receive it in that form. You're doing them a service by helping them get it out. Okay. Does that make sense? So that's another way. And then resentment can fester fast, you guys. It is like a rotting, spoiled food or a wound. It can fester really fast. So if you don't allow yourself and allow them to get something off their chest, there's going to be space and a wall that is built between you that just gets thicker and thicker and thicker with every passing day. It always feels better to get it out, even the hard stuff. This is something we really dive into in the Keystone Tools of Take the Lead. If you have not at least taken a look at Take the Lead and what that could mean for you and your family, and how to love and lead your daughter in a way that teaches her to love and lead herself throughout her entire 6570, and especially in that second half of 6570, check out the link down below. It is right there, you guys. It is hands down the most comprehensive stick with you system that is out there, that is directly catered to you. It helps you write the book on how to raise your child. I'm not, having you read my book. Each one of my kids is even different. So the book I have on how to, raise and what to do with one child is different than another, different than another, different than another. Did I do enough? I have 4 kids. And so, but anyway, I want to help you learn how to raise your child based on your Keystone Tools and how her worth, esteem, and confidence works and things like that. Anyway, all of that can be found in Take the Lead. Check it out down below. So again, that was paint the expectation, communicate well and frequently. And the third one is be brave, you guys. Life requires it. We can't get through life and truly live it without being brave. And that's a hard one sometimes, you guys. It's so hard. You are given this one life to live. And in order to do it well, you need to be brave, even when you don't feel brave. And I just want to reiterate, because we've talked about feelings before. Feelings are fickle, you guys. They change on a moment's notice. So you can't rely on feelings when you are approaching a challenge in life, right? And I love 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control." I want to read that again. For God gave us the spirit not of fear, but of power, love, and self-control. Power, love, and self-control, you guys. 2 Timothy 1:7. Check it out. Go underline it, ponder over that, write it out. Power, love, self-control. We are not made to just live off of our feelings. We will be a yo-yo if we do that, right? So in our community this week, we talked about how Mother's Day sometimes doesn't turn out the way it, is expected to be, right? I know for me, I had a broken washer, 2 broken AC units, and I had dogs that we were taking care of that got sick from every place on their bodies, all over the place, multiple times. And so we're running, wet laundry through the neighborhood to try and get things like the essentials done and all of this. It wasn't exactly what I expected. And then there was, bickering sometimes between the kids, and there was this and that and the other. But I beef jerkied, right? I beef jerkied and found the joy in the chaos and made some great moments and memories. There was this time that we were at the beach in the rain, albeit, and we were all out in the water. Even my husband, who's like, "Oh, the water's cold," but we were out in the water and it was fantastic. So if you get lost in the expectations, you will always be in scarcity. And that is not the way that you were meant to live, you guys. You were made for more. And I had to have this talk with a couple of my daughters multiple times this year. The unexpected happens. It just does. And life can be hard, but you were created strong, you guys. Paint the expectation, communicate well and frequently, and be brave, you guys. Be the beef jerky. Okay. All right, guys. I hope this gave you some notes, some things to ponder on today. Go be the beef jerky, have the plans and expectations, hopes and dreams, but be ready for what life is going to throw at you too. And just act out of your values. Okay, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.